RG3 thinks the Lions are drafting players to win a Super Bowl, and he thinks they're primed to win a Super Bowl. And he had a tweet today and put out his kind of breakdown, even though he used Antoine Green, I think, instead of Amon-Ra St. Brown, but it's all forgiven, RG3. We still love you. He put out a tweet and it says the Lions can win a Super Bowl this year, and their schedule couldn't be more favorable for them to prove they are never going back to the Lions of yesteryear. Only 3 games outside the entire regular season, 5 primetime games, and they're favored in 13 of the 17 games. So let's play this clip of RG3 breaking down why he believes it is the Lions' time. And then we'll give our thoughts on what he said in the video. But here is that clip. Check it out.
Catch me outside. How about that? Doesn't apply to the Lions this year because they only play 3 games outdoors the entire season. That's incredible. So everyone's asking me, hey, is this the time for the Lions? Can the Lions finally get over the hump and win the Super Bowl? Can they? You better believe they can. Look at it this way. Jared Goff, the man, comes over from the Rams. He's a cast out. Guess what? He establishes himself as a franchise quarterback, gets paid. Amon-Ra St. Brown has 75 million wide receivers drafted before him, dyes his hair blue. The sun god shows that he is the offensive Swiss Army knife that they absolutely needed there in Detroit, got paid. Then you got Penei Sewell, who was the enforcer at the line of scrimmage, got paid. So guess what? Now the Lions have all of these dynamic playmakers on offense. They retooled their entire defense to be able to go out and compete and not just get back to where they were, but actually become better. Now, those guys that have been paid don't have to focus on the money. They can focus on one thing and one thing only, and that's establishing and cementing their legacy in Detroit as Super Bowl champions. Brad Holmes isn't satisfied. Dan Campbell isn't satisfied. And it seems to me like no one in that locker room is satisfied either. They know it's going to be harder to do what they did last year, this year, because no one's going to be surprised by them. But guess what? That's why they come back with a better team, a better secondary, a better defensive line. And oh yeah, their offensive coordinator, Ben Johnson, he came back too because he believes he has unfinished business. And when I look at the way that their schedule plays out, it makes getting home field advantage in the playoffs that much more important for the Lions. Because if they only have to play outside 3 times the entire year, why would they want to have to now go outside and play in the playoffs in the freezing cold when they've been chilling in the air conditioning like a basketball team the entire season? So that is going to be a point of emphasis. They have to get off to a fast start. And I believe this is the year after you have the extreme success, that the Lions can show that they are here to stay and they're not going to go back to the same old Lions of yesteryear.
Wow. Okay. RG3, it's kind of spitting.
Rumor going around.
He was kind of spitting. I know John says RG3 cutting Lions promos. That's what it seemed like. But RG3 was making some great points. One, all the outdoor games they have, obviously, it's not a surprise to anybody. It's easier to play indoors. It just is. And they're favored in most of the games, and they have multiple primetime games. And his point about how they've gotten better this offseason and the way the NFC is, just the NFL is, they are one of the best rosters in the NFL. Fellas, what'd you think about what RG3 said?
Boys, I just want to throw it out there. RG3 is a part of the Booner path, baby.
Hold on.
RG3 said, I'm all in on this team. I'm with the Detroit Lions. I'm with the Booner path. I am in. That's all I took out of this. This man believes the Detroit Lions will win a Super Bowl this year. He's probably listened to me speak a couple times and preach about this football team. That's where he's at right now. It's one of the, as well, too, fellas. I don't know if this is how you guys felt about it, but just hearing like national media be like the SOL is gone finally, and it's the brand new Lions, and they can go win a Super Bowl. That is what I love to see. Like, that was what we wanted to see going into last year, and we had to beg for it, and we had to sit there and just absolutely like, all right, come on, boys, let's get this narrative off our back. I was in the trenches fighting versus Lions fans trying to get the SOL thing off in my comment section all the time. So now the fact that there's people like RG3 and Dan Orlow, like people out there that are saying this Detroit Lions team is serious and they go win a Super Bowl, that is exactly what we wanted here in Detroit. And they need to go take care of business this year, finish the Booner path, win a Lombardi trophy, have a Super Bowl parade, and finish this whole deal so the whole SOL thing will never be heard of again, and it turns into like the same old Cowboys. That's what we need to have this year.
Klotzy.
I mean, I was surprised that he nailed every detail. He went in depth. The only thing he didn't nail was like Sheila Ford Hamp, which I don't even blame him. I mean, he went through he dotted his I's and crossed his T's. I mean, I was ecstatic when I heard him say it, just because I think he is a guy that actually watches the game. You can tell he paid attention to the game. He's not just up there saying shit. He didn't just record that whole video just to say shit for clicks. So I'm excited to hear a guy like him talk about it. And I think it is true. I think there is a lot of value to what he's saying, just because you go from, like he mentioned, the GM, the head coach, the roster, everything's there for set up for success. And the fact that they do have that amount of indoor games, I think just bodes even more comfortably for Jared Goff as well, because as much as people don't want to bring it up, he's a different quarterback inside and outside. I think a lot of quarterback is, but when you look at how he plays, it makes an even bigger difference for him. It sets the Lions up for even more success.
Yeah, and one thing, even though we brought up earlier why the pass rush is still somewhat of a concern, it's kind of to be determined. You can't deny that they do have the GM, the head coach, at least we think at this point, I would say yes, and Jared Goff, the quarterback, figured out. Those three levels and ownership, you could even go one more level. They have it all figured out. And like you said, Lucas, the way Jared Goff plays, he's not mobile. Therefore, in inclement weather, I think mobile quarterbacks can get away with, if everything's covered, instead of throwing in, 1 degree weather and it's snowing, they can take off. Jared, I think, benefits indoors, which is fine, but they have a majority of their games indoors and home field is indoors. So it's great. It's great for the 1 seed, which that's kind of where he was going with that. If you get the 1 seed, you get home field advantage and you get a bye, which makes how many games you have to win to get to the Super Bowl a little easier. Guys can get healthy. And I prefer that route. And I do think there's a lot of truth to what he's saying. I think it's absolutely true. Now, in terms of the offense and Ben Johnson coming back, which is another thing that was spot on. He came back, so that matters. He's still here. There is kind of a little bit of window because you got Ben Johnson, so you have to capitalize on that. But the way Jared Goff's playing the last couple of years, there's no reason why you think he doesn't play the way he played, if not better, because he's another year in the offense. And, I think the defense really is the only thing to me. Everything, there's not really any question marks on this roster besides the defense, but specifically the pass rush. That's really it.
I'm not even really concerned about the defense as a whole, just that edge.
Yeah.
And if there's always going to be a hole in the defense somewhere, even with the injury or not, and if that's where that for the Lions, I'm happy that they're strong in the interior of the defensive line.
Yeah, and if you got RG3, and I do appreciate RG3. I think he brings good he's a good analyst.
It was great what he said.
Yeah, he's a good analyst, and we'd love to have him on the program. So we got to reach out to him, kind of dive more deeper into what he was saying there. But yeah, I mean, the playoffs, you never know who you're going to match up with. If you get the 1 seed, you don't have to worry about playing a team like the Rams. That's a tough out. Last year they got through the Rams, but in general, you want to get that 1 seed just to have the benefit of like watching and being like, okay, we're chilling. Let's face who wins. We get a bye. How we mentioned earlier, the NFL, there's going to be injuries. But I do think this NFC, but it's really the 49ers. It's a 2-3 team. If you want to include the Eagles, I think having new coordinators, there'll be time. There has to be a period of time where they adjust, but they have Saquon too, and he's an animal. So I think it's a 3-team race for that 1 seed. And I do think the Lions, we have at 13 wins as a group. I think that'll be enough, in my opinion. I think 13 wins. And some people even have them at 14 wins, which
it's a lot.
It's a lot of wins. But
a lot of wins.
Didn't the Eagles win 14 games like 2 years ago?
Went to the Super Bowl.
Yeah, baby.
So
I mean, I don't hate the losses. It's adversity, man. And the best person in the whole league handling adversity and using it to get better and kind of motivate guys is Dan Campbell. So that's why I think 13's fine. And like a lot of when we did our schedule, our initial projection, me and Klotz had them losing 3 or 4 games, like a stretch like that, or maybe 2 or 3. And it was like, you're going to go through those. And that's like what Dan is so good at, kind of overcoming and kind of reeling the team back in and using it as motivation.